Let's put the music on. I'm hoping we're live. Yeah, we are. We're live.
It says I'm on air. Great.
It does. Let's get this on here. Right. Here we are. Just wait for the music to kick in. There's the music. Brilliant. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are. This is Leaders Live, our breakfast show in the morning. Hope you're enjoying the music while we're just counting down. This is a minor blues written by my Uncle Peter. So, yeah, I could say that he wrote it specially for me, but I'm going to claim that he did, but he didn't really. So, yeah, it's great to see lots of people jumping on live right now, so welcome to you. I hope the volume's okay. Hope you can hear us too. I'm just talking over the music a little bit at the moment. The music will stop in a moment. So yeah, I've got the fantastic Roger Terry back in the room today. So we're going to talk about rapport today. Can't wait for this. So we're really excited about that. And here we go, counting down now. So there we go. Hey. Well, here we go. So, well, it's a Tuesday morning, folks, here in the UK. It's 8:45 and we are live. 8:45 and we are live. I like that. Yeah. We're streaming out on LinkedIn, FaceTube. Yeah, Facebook, Twitter. We're everywhere. Here's Roger as well. So we got Roger live today. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You know, wherever you are, welcome to this Leaders Live breakfast show. Just before we get to Roger, and it's great to have Roger on the show again. Let me just give you a quick teaser, folks. So let me just turn the volume down on this just a moment. There we go. So why do we need to create rapport to do business well? You know, for some of you that might seem, you know, the bleeding obvious, but for others it might not be so. And what are the indicators, folks, that you are in rapport with another person or other people? And what's the difference between rapport and mimicry, right? I mean, that's an interesting one. And why is sharpening up our senses so critical to good rapport skills? And how do you use your body language as well as your values and beliefs to increase rapport? All of these things, we'll get to all of that today and a lot more in the next 30 minutes or so. And we have an offer for you at the end of this session, so stick around, folks. So that's where we're heading today. So if you don't know me, I'm Andrew Jenkins. As always, please, I encourage you to interact with all the comments that we've got going on here, and ask us questions too in the comments and we'll pick them up. And please let me know if our audio is coming through okay as well, please. That would be really helpful. So just a prod to say that our audio is okay. So this morning, folks, I am joined by the awesome Roger Terry for the second time. Hi, Roger. Great to have you on the Leaders Live breakfast show again.
Lovely to be here.
Lovely to be here. Brilliant. Let me just give you a quick round of applause. I don't know whether that's come through. Has that come through for you, Roger?
Never mind.
I don't think that came through, so I don't know what happened there, but I know why. There we go. Let's do that again. I had to hire even more better. I had to hire these people from outside, you know, so it wasn't quite as many people as the last time we did this, but there we go. So yeah, so today, Roger, you know, we have a fascinating session on. We're going to talk about rapport, aren't we, Roger?
We are going to talk about rapport and all its aspects.
And all its aspects.
Especially important after this period of 18 months of lockdown, released lockdown, because it's a critical skill. I think that if you learn this skill, then it can take you a long way in terms of your business. It was a skill that I learned early on in my business career, and it really paid dividends when I'd really got the skill embedded.
Yeah, and I absolutely, I can definitely concur with that, because Roger was my teacher. He's still my mentor. He's an amazing person. Let me just introduce some of Roger's credentials here. So he's an international NLP master trainer. He's a coach. He's a scientist, and he's a speaker too. He is definitely a gifted teacher of mindset and an architect of the mind, he likes to call himself. And I love that expression. And you know, using your brain for a change and life changes experience is what Roger really offers in his teaching. Certainly changed my life. As I said, Roger's been my teacher, my mentor too. He's published author of 3 books, bringing NLP into the world of business and education. I mean, that's quite an accolade, that, isn't it? So, let's get right into this. We're going to talk about building rapport and why it's important for high performance teamwork and business success. So, let's just dive straight in, Roger. Start us off with some context around definition. What is rapport exactly, Roger?
I think you can best kind of define rapport as when people get aligned. I mean, we've been talking for the last 15 minutes before the show starts. So we've even with the screens, we've managed to build up a rapport. We've got a mental and physical starts to align. So and we feel it when we're in rapport, and it's also a feeling that we get, that we know that we're in connection with somebody.
Okay.
That's something that human beings seek. So it's part of our human pattern.
So it's the ability to relate to others.
When we've got a similarity going on.
Okay, a similarity going on. So it's the way we relate to others through similarity. Tell us a bit more about that, Roger.
Well, so let's talk about what sort of creatures we are, because it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because we're social creatures. Our whole success is built on our social aspect. We work together, we live together, we live in groups, family groups. It's really important to have a signal system. Bees are social creatures. They have a chemical signal system. We're slightly different. We have a physical signal system at the start. So what we're looking for is we've got a program. You could think we've got a program that sits in the back of our mind unconsciously, that searching for connection, for that social connection, searching for who could I have a relationship with. I don't mean an intimate relationship, but any sort of relationship.
How do I relate to others, right?
And how do I first know what that's going to be like? Because that's about identifying patterns, which is the other thing that human beings are incredibly brilliant at doing, about identifying patterns. We're almost automatically able to do that. It's a real skill that we have.
Is that an innate skill, is it, Roger?
I think it's, it's nature and nurture. How do you know? But we're pretty much, people are good in some ways of identifying patterns. Think of all the things that we do that require patterns in our life and being able to identify them. So we're pattern identification. So we're social creatures. We need a signal. We identify patterns.
Yeah.
So what's the pattern that we're going to be most familiar with?
Okay. So let me just catch up with you there, Roger, just for a moment.
Yeah.
So it's the ability to relate to others in a way that creates trust and understanding, I think, if I could just put that.
Absolutely. And that's another definition of rapport.
Yeah.
So where do we go with rapport? We want to create trust and understanding, because if we've got that, in a business context, if we've got trust and understanding, that's going to make our teamwork, much more powerful. It's going to make our connections to those people outside the business, if we built rapport, also very profitable and worth doing. So that's the aim, if you like. That's where we're going with it. That's why we want to be good at rapport, so that we can create this trust and understanding. How we do it is the other part of it.
Right, we'll come on to that. But the other thing here is that, just talking about the headlines here, is that we don't have to agree with another point of view, do we? We don't even have to even like it.
Absolutely not. To be in rapport with somebody, you don't have to be their best buddy.
No.
It's not. What's interesting though is if you practice enough rapport and you use skills and they become unconscious, what you find is that actually relationships warm up in a way that's quite surprising.
I like that expression. Relationships warm up in a way that's quite surprising. That's beautiful.
I'll talk a bit about the rapport temperature a bit later on. I've got a little thing there that might be useful. But think about how you can create a warm relationship, because in business we don't want cold indifference. We want warm relationships.
And there's something about that indifference thing and similarity here, and surprisingly, don't we make our best business decisions when we're based on rapport rather than just on merit or technical competence or whatever? Most of our decisions and our values in business are based around the relationship we have with somebody, not necessarily agreeing with them, but being able to have rapport and understanding, right?
Absolutely. Even if we're in a negotiation and we've got different points of view in terms of that, if we've got more rapport, we'll more likely find some common ground.
Yeah. And with that common ground, can we then use it to, we're more likely to buy from and agree with or support someone that you can relate to. But you can also have a disagreement and still be in rapport. Can you, Roger?
Absolutely. You can totally have a disagreement. And what's really interesting, and this comes out many times when we do exercises in class, that you could take opposing points of view,
right,
and then you can be in rapport, and something quite magical happens, is that common ground appears between you, and the whole thing kind of changes. So, and that's about using the kind of rapport skills that we'll talk about a bit later on. And there are a variety of those skills that you can employ. But I think it is about how we align ourselves and being willing to do that. It starts with an intention. If you have the intention of being in rapport, that can be really helpful.
I really like that. So being very purposefully intentional about wanting to build rapport with someone, even if you're in negotiation, right? Because and in some ways, one of the classic moves of negotiation is positions and interests. And when we're developing rapport, we're much more interested in the interest of that relationship and trying to find that common ground. And that's where we can make really good decisions, right? When maybe you've got a way, I've got a way, but by building rapport together, we find a third way, perhaps. Maybe even that's
absolutely.
Possible.
And this is the in business, for performance, one of the catchwords is we need to be collaborative. In a way, the age of collaboration, and the only way that you can get collaboration going properly is to build strong rapport. Collaboration doesn't work when people are in competition. So if you're a project manager, if you're working in an area where you need to bring many parts together and many different interests together, then your rapport building skills, both one-to-one and in a group, are going to be critical to how well that project runs.
That's really interesting, that. And I use a metaphor for this. I quite often compare foxes to dolphins. I know they're completely different creatures, right? But you've got foxes which are, they like to win at all cost, and they're a little bit sly, very intelligent, but they get their kicks out of winning, right? And wanting to have what they want. Whereas dolphins will work on a win-win kind of arrangement, and what you're talking about collaboration there is having that win-win, and that's what rapport does so well, right? Even between two different parties, rather than win-lose.
You can definitely think of rapport as being the platform that allows you to reach a win-win when that's possible. If you go to if you think about Thomas Kuhlman, his work, conflict, he has two dimensions. He has a distributive dimension, which is about how much of the pie do we each other.
That's right.
Or an integrated dimension is where we work together to figure it out. And that's actually a much more tricky thing to do without. It's impossible to do without rapport. And it's something that in business is really a good thing to have an aim to build. So we go back to kind of intention. In this conversation with you, my intent was to build rapport and stay with you. So when we've got that intent together, we have a good conversation.
Absolutely. And why is rapport so important to us as humans, Roger? What are the fundamentals that form, often unconsciously? And just before you answer that, Roger, look, you guys listening, please join in on the conversation. It's great to see that Syed's interacting with us here online with comments too. So please put comments in, and we'll pick them up, and questions as well as we go along.
Great.
Yeah. So going back to the question again, fundamentals of what are the indicators? Sorry, let's start with there. How do we know we're in rapport? What are the indicators?
If we start at a very just at a basic level of rapport, I think you could think of rapport as having levels that get deeper.
Levels, right?
Well, we can talk a little bit about that. But gestures, how we use our gestures, noticing people's gestures, noticing people's body position, even on Zoom, we're on camera. So what I've actually done is I've pulled myself a little bit further back, so you can see more of me. I've got a second camera here if I'm teaching on Zoom. Stand over here so you can see all of me. So often we have people and they're so close to the thing, or their camera position is such that you're looking up their nostril or down their foot on their forehead. So it's good to pay attention to that. So you want to pay attention to your gestures and watching other people's gestures, and seeing what you can notice their body position. And in terms of body position, I think probably the head and spine angles one of the critical things, and that's great because you can actually do that on Zoom or Teams or whatever very easily.
Head and spine angles. That's in what you mean. This you mean?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
This,
yeah. So
right.
If you notice that, and sometimes you'll notice that people turn one ear or the other towards where the sound's coming from.
Okay.
So this is all about reflecting, not mimicry, but just creating some similarity. Then the other part is the words.
Yeah.
What are the words we're using? Can we use words that actually will connect with the other person? Yeah. And there's quite a lot around that in terms of how we use sensory language.
Okay.
So, that's another topic in and of itself.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we might even do a masterclass on that, Roger.
There are lots of ways to use sensory language. I put a little bit of language in the PDF that's going to come after.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But, often, words come, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. So you have to do a bit of prep to learn those patterns and words that are useful in order to build rapport, and what to listen for and what to reflect.
That's interesting. What to listen for and what to reflect. So there's a bit of practice involved here.
Oh, there is a lot of practice. This is rapport is an innate skill at its at a basic level. If we want to get excellence, then we actually need to do. If you want to be an excellent athlete, what do you have to do?
Practice, right?
You've got to practice, and you've got to practice. You've got to practice right rather than practice.
For the sake of it.
You need the right thing. So
it's a bit like golf, Roger. I find often that I get better the more I practice. I don't know why that is, but
I don't know why. It's phenomenal. It's just really strange, So think of these things, and I think this is just as an aside. I think this is one of the problems with our information age, where you can type in rapport in Google and get a load of stuff out of it, but actually it's not building a skill. You're just receiving information.
Yeah,
you've actually got to do things with your body to appreciate that, and have some experience that show you that what you're doing is working. So once we've got the gestures and the feelings, and we've got a little bit of shared experience, which is is always useful to have,
common
experience. That feels common ground. Then we'll start to align with the other person, and we'll start to, if we become sensitive and we tune our senses, and we know about that kind of thing, which is the kind of higher level NLP training, then we can actually sense what the other person's feeling.
Okay.
We've got an incredible ability to align ourselves with another human being. Think about it when you're with somebody that you love, and how much you can pick up from that person when you get truly connected. And that's a deep level of rapport. We are much more sensitive creatures than sometimes we think. With a little bit of training and a little bit of instruction, we can build that sense. The other thing about senses is, in order to do rapport elegantly, we have to have a flow of information coming from that other person.
Right.
So we've got to tune our senses in a way that allows us to pick up the information so that we can automatically be in rapport.
Yeah.
So we don't have to think, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So it just happens at a more elegant level.
Absolutely.
It's like, how do we upgrade those natural skills?
Yeah, Roger, I'm just getting a little bit of an echo on the line. Are you picking that up too?
No.
Do you want to put your headphones in while we're just talking, Roger,
sure.
if that's okay?
Yes,
yeah, brilliant, thank you. So just while you're doing that, I'll just... So Edme has said today, I'm on my morning run, Andrew, and listening, and I'm totally loving this. That's pretty impressive that you're running and typing at the same time. I'm really impressed by that. That is a skill that I just definitely haven't got. So, okay, Roger, I think you're back on now with some headphones. Can we hear you?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, we've got rid of that.
Okay.
That echo. So, you talked a little bit about this being, a deeper thing, and the more we practice it, the better we get. How do we go about opening ourselves up to building rapport effectively, Roger? What do we have to notice practically, and then what can we match that creates that similarity?
There are many things that start to align when we meet. We'll talk about face to face, because that's the kind of the easier place to talk about. So many things start to align automatically when we build rapport. The trick is, if we are in conflict, if we feel we're going into a conflict situation, rapport will be more difficult to build, and we have to pay more attention to it.
Right.
If we're going into a meeting, we might want to pay more attention to how we build rapport.
Okay.
So first of all, we can look for the body position. We can look for the sort of gestures. Now, you don't want to be mimicking somebody.
No,
it's
like
not,
I just
it's
did,
not,
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessary to mimic somebody. No. So let me sort of see if I can give a bit of a demonstration without pulling my headphones out. So, if somebody often we'll go, well, we'll often make meaning out of body position. So we'll go, okay,
crossed arms, right?
What does this mean? And if you ask most people, and they'll say, oh, it means the person's defensive. Well, the problem with that is, as soon as you think that, your whole system aligns you to that person's being defensive. So my communication is going to shift. Yeah. So first of all, we need an internal shift to say, well, if the person's got their arms folded, that just because they're cold, or it could be comfortable, and you don't know that.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't need to mimic somebody and fold your arms exactly the same. You could I'm going to lift my arm. You could fold your arms like that. Okay. You could give something. So just be similar, and the same with legs. If if somebody's got their legs crossed, you don't have to cross them in exactly the same way, but just in a similar way. So the whole thing about rapport physically is just think about, how do I just create a bit of similarity? How do I create sameness?
Yeah, rather than difference.
Rather than difference. And sometimes people create difference because they see this happening, and it feels a bit they spot it, and because they don't know about it, it immediately feels uncomfortable, so they back away from it. Actually, it's a good sign if you see somebody else in a similar position to you. That's I take that as a good sign that you're starting to build rapport at that physical level.
Oh, Roger, yes, so right. Just give you a pause there for a moment, Roger,
sure.
before you jump into the next piece. Oh, that is so true, isn't it? And for you guys listening into this and watching this live stream, watching lovers at a restaurant, for example, you talked
Absolutely.
about legs crossing and things like that. When people are in rapport, one person leans forward, the other person leans forward, one leans back, the other one either follows that person and leans forward when they lean back, and so it's almost like a dance, isn't it? When you watch people in rapport, deep rapport, and they're in conversation, you will spot a lot of similarities in the way their bodies are. Not exactly, but the crossing legs one is one I've noticed often. When two people are talking in an open space and one person crosses their legs, then a few minutes later, or a few seconds later, the other person follows that completely unconsciously, right, Roger?
Yeah, there's a lot of unconscious stuff going on here, and one of the things about learning about rapport is it's almost as if we've got a channel of communication unconsciously. Well, we have. We've got this unconscious channel of communication. When you learn more about rapport, what you're able to do, you're able to, in a way, put stronger messages into that channel for the other person to pick up.
Stronger messages.
So your communication is more powerful.
I really like that, and actually, our bodies are doing that for us, right? They're actually saying
they are. But I like your analogy. You said it's a dance, and yes, it's a dance. So if we think about dancing's a skill, and we could probably all bop around on the dance floor without any lessons. But if we want to learn to dance really well, what do? We go have some lessons. We go to a jive class, and all of a sudden we find we can do things that we haven't been able to do before. It's the same principle. So we're learning with rapport how to engage in that dance deliberately and with consciousness, so that we can improve the trust and in the relationship.
Yeah, and Syed
and the understanding. So people actually understand us, and we understand them, because it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street, and we're looking for those similarities. And Syed says here, you're so right. Mirroring the other person's movements really helps building rapport. Yeah, spot on, Syed. And that's exactly part of the process here, is spotting what's going on. That's what you mean by opening up your senses, Roger, right?
It is what you need, because in order to do that, initially, when we're learning this, we need to be open, and we need to be able to notice what's happening. And you can not only mirror somebody, which is as if you were in the mirror, but you can also match them. So you've got some choices. And actually in business, it doesn't matter whether you match or mirror, because you'll still have the same results. So you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how you create that physical similarity.
Okay, so matching and mirroring, it's kind of the same thing, it's just very subtly different. That's all.
It's subtly different
Subtly
in that
different.
in terms of business, you could choose to do either, and it would be fine. When
Brilliant.
we get into deeper areas, there are times when we want to mirror, and there are times when we want to match because of the information flow. But that's another topic again.
That's another topic. That's our masterclass, right? Which we'll talk
That's a
about
masterclass, where we can talk about that.
we
Absolutely.
may be talking about that later. Brilliant. So tell us a bit more, Roger. What else can we talk about with rapport? There's so much here, isn't there?
So if you think about this in terms of levels, we could say if you get the physicality right, then you can develop similarity, which will warm the relationship up. We'll start to develop that trust and in the other person. So then we've got to develop some understanding. We've got to think about how do we use our language is the next place.
Okay, and just before we get to that, Roger, I'm just going back to body. You talked a lot about body. What about things like voice tone?
Well, voice tone's really also pretty critical. I mean, you can go back to that Moravian research where he said 7% words, 38% voice tone. You have to put a caveat on that,
Okay.
However,
Simple
what's
stuff.
interesting is with physiology, voice tone. Well, I'll just do a demonstration. So I'm talking to you. You can hear my voice tone now. So if I start, I'm going to change my physiology. So if I change my physiology and start to crush my voice, if I start to sink down like this, what you hear my voice tone start to change. Okay. Now I've done that in a fairly extreme way so that you can hear the tone. But even subtle shifts, because our voice box sits in our throat and it's strong on ligaments, then changing your physiology will change your voice tone. So changing your physiology to be similar to the other person will also bring your voice tone somewhat similar as well. So you don't have to think, I've got to change my voice tone into this. It's not really necessary to do that because voice tone will follow physiology because it's physiologically dependent.
And there's the speed also, Roger, is another thing, isn't it? And,
so that is something that you can consciously deal with. You can slow your speed down, or you can speed it up, depending on who you're talking to. Some people who've got quick brains, like Andrew and I have conversations. We talk really fast to each other.
We do,
and if there was a third person in the room that didn't do that, they'd be slow down, please. You're going too fast. And that's the other thing that you pay attention to. What speed you need to go at. What speed's the other person going at? Because you can talk so fast that you lose people.
Yeah. So
and then that takes us up into another stream of how do our senses impact how we're receiving information from other people, and we've all got preferences, and those preferences will change. So there's a lot of things that can interact here. There's a lot of knowledge that is really useful to know about.
Absolutely, and opening up your senses allows you to become aware of consciously, okay, what's the pace of this conversation?
Absolutely.
What's the speed of it? What's the tone of it? And you start to open up your senses, and that might be a conscious thing, and then you drop back into unconsciousness again, and you can see those similarities building. And the other thing that you started to move on to, which we'll go on to now, is the whole piece about language. Tell us a bit more about that, Roger. The building rapport with language.
There's a number of ways. One of the key things that we're social creatures. We look for similarity. The other thing we look for is affirmation from the other person to have a kind of yes. And we'll have you put a nice slide up there. So we'll have some ways of speaking that speak in. I talked about sensory language. So this is one component of this sensory language. You can see on that little cloud slide, there are numbers of bits of language. Now, okay, they'll sound a bit like cliches. That doesn't really matter because if I say to Andrew, are you on my wavelength? There's a meaning behind that. And you go, yeah, I've got your idea. I'm with you. Or are we on the same page? So these questions that we ask actually help us to bring people together. If I ask Andrew, have you got the same perspective on this? That's a visual way of asking it. Andrew might say actually he might say actually no. So then I know that I need to do something different.
Yeah.
And if he's got the same perspective, he'll go, yeah, I can see what he might say. I can see what you mean, because he'll reply in that way. Indeed. So we can learn about sensory language, and sensory language is like seasoning. It's sprinkled through our language. You won't hear streams of it. You'll hear it every so often. And it also, the more technical the language, the less sensory language you'll have in it. The other thing about sensory language is if you start to use sensory language, you'll create more impact because you'll interact with that person's senses. If I ask Andrew, do you share my point of view? He's got to do something inside to look inside for that point of view. So we're immediately, our brains start to go into sync.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you see what I did there?
And absolutely. And
when we say we're on the same wavelength, Roger, you might say, that's ringing a bell, or that's struck a tone.
Yeah, or I might say we're in tune. So I know these sound like cliches, but there can be quite useful as metaphors for connecting together on a sensory level, and that's another level of rapport that you can do.
I really like that.
And then there are other language patterns that we can learn that actually will stimulate rapport.
Yeah.
So you used you used one at the beginning of the session, which is something called cover all bases, which is a great way of including everybody. Some of you might be out on a run, some of you might be sitting at your desk, some of you might be having your breakfast. Some of you might be getting ready to go to work while you're listening to this. So by talking about that, I'm actually, as a speaker, able to connect quickly with each person, providing I know a little bit about my audience and I've guessed right about those activities. Then I know some of you will have already had a yes inside. So we're giving that affirmation. And there are a few other patterns that you can learn that are also helpful for that.
It's all about finding that similarity, and I just spotted my head nodding as you were saying those things. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so when we have that affirmation going, we've got that yes going inside. If you think about, you want to sell things to people, you want people to buy things from you. It's not about selling things. It's about having them agree with you, and having them yes, that's right. That would be really useful.
By now I'm understanding that, right?
So there's a whole. This is why people. I meet people in business. They go, "Oh yeah, that rapport stuff. That's just about mimicking people." Well, that's not true. There's a lot more to rapport that you can learn to become. If you want to become a powerful communicator, if you want to become a speaker or a team leader or a project manager or a CEO, you need to learn about this stuff, because it's going to make your communication so much more powerful in terms of how you're able to do things, and it's going to make your life easier, because you're not going to have so much conflict going on that you're going to have to deal with. And go into business and you say, what are the things what's the thing in this business? It's a question I often ask. What's the thing in this business that you're most concerned with? And the first thing people say is communication.
Often. Or
the second thing they say is, well, we've got a lot of conflict going on. Well, this you can see why. And why in business, if you're going to run a powerful team, if you're going to be a leader, then embedding these skills is going to be, a critical facet to your, to your emotional intelligence. Self-awareness and awareness of others are the two bedrocks of emotional intelligence. So if you want that emotional intelligence, then this is
powerful skill to learn. I really like the way you've framed that, Roger. In terms of high performance, just by learning the simplicity and the complexity to rapport, and really understanding and drilling it a little bit, which we'll come on to in a moment, is a really powerfully useful skill. And then it just becomes easy, right? Because it becomes unconscious, which again we'll talk about in a moment.
Just like driving a car.
Absolutely. Just like driving a car. When you first learn, it's kind of like, okay, clutch, gears, signs, left, right, and all of those things. But eventually it all becomes quite natural, and it just sinks into our unconscious, right? And that's the important thing.
And that's where you want to get to. You want to get to the fact where you walk away from a conversation or an interaction with somebody, you go, my God, I was in rapport and my language just came, and I didn't have to think about it consciously. That's the unconscious competence level that we want to get to. We're already competent at doing rapport, but we want to upgrade it so that we're unconsciously competent at a new level.
Upgrade the operating system to a new level and unlock unlock
absolutely.
other areas. I love that.
We're really happy to upgrade our computers and upgrade our phones and do software upgrades, but
Upgrade
we're
our
a bit
brains.
reluctant to do it to ourselves.
Yeah, use your brain for a change. I like that. Roger, sum
Yeah,
up for us. We're coming into this finishing up stage now.
yeah.
What's the difference that makes the difference here? Give us 3 tips
I think
on how to build
the
rapport.
difference, first of all, have an intention to be in rapport,
Yeah,
and the things that go with that, to listen and to understand and be understood.
right.
Then
Yeah,
at this kind of beginning bit, figure out, just notice you. I mean, it might be the first thing you do is just to notice people's body position,
yeah.
especially in
Notice.
face to
Yeah,
face.
notice
So
more.
just do
Like
some
that.
noticing,
Yeah,
and by noticing, that'll help your senses go, oh, the unconscious part goes,
yeah. That's the
you're
third
paying
piece.
attention to this. You want more of it. So that's kind of a little bit of way of slowly programming that.
Yeah,
And then, notice what happens to your relationships when you
love
employ
that.
a couple of these things.
Yeah,
So, there's a little cycle there. First, you're
feedback
noticing
loop.
what's coming, and then you're noticing what is the result from that.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
then, okay, what can I do to get a better result
Yeah.
if I want?
And did you notice the subtlety I use there? What's the difference that makes the difference? And we've not been talking about difference. We've been talking about similarity. So
Absolutely.
that was
The difference that makes a difference is to be similar.
is to be similar, yeah. And for me, just to sum up, is open up your senses and notice what's going on. Find a good teacher, that can help you with these things, and practice regularly and get that feedback loop, as Roger said.
Yeah,
Get it going
absolutely.
so
That's
that you
totally.
understand.
It's totally. These things are skill based, and the more you practice in the correct way,
Yeah.
with the right intention, the better you'll become, until it's just like driving a car and it goes unconscious.
I like that. Just actually, that was beautifully positioned. I can't believe how well you've just led on to what I was just
That's
about to
because
say
we're in
next.
rapport,
How does that
Andrew.
happen? I hope you found this useful, folks, and has given you some food for thought here. And if you're interested if this has whetted your appetite, oh, do you like that? If this has whetted your appetite and you want further tasters in this to really get your appetite going, then Roger and I are super excited that we have a special offer that I'd like to tell you about right now. So in September, we haven't got the date yet, but after the holiday period, we are planning to lead a 1-hour masterclass over Zoom using a webinar on building rapport in business. And as Roger said, there's a lot to building rapport, as we've just experienced on opening up the lid today. And as Roger said, like learning to drive, at first your unconscious is really overwhelmed by it all. And so the purpose of our masterclass is that we'll use NLP techniques, and NLP is absolutely probably the foremost technology in building rapport. It's just brilliant at that, to help you to open up your senses, to notice more, and at the same time to drill that learning into your unconscious, so you don't even have to think about it, and it will just flow easily to you. And so remember, learning is all like that 4-step ladder, and Roger, just remind us what those 4 steps of learning are.
So if you think about where you are now, when you turned on the call, you were perhaps unconsciously competent at a particular level. We've talked about rapport, showed we've brought your awareness to some of the things that are important in rapport. So that's, now you might think, well, I'm consciously incompetent. Don't know. So then the next step is a bit of training, a bit of learning some skills. Then you get to conscious. Then you get to conscious competence. Yeah. And then, if providing you do the practice and you go out there and you utilize skills, what you end up with is you become unconsciously competent again at a different level. And then this is a repeating cycle to build. This is an excellence building cycle. So whatever you're doing, human beings are skill-based creatures. We just can't go Google it and expect it to fall into our brains and we're able to do it.
You've got to learn it. You can't just go to the garage and fetch it out. Oh, indeed, absolutely. So, we're going to be talking about advanced techniques of matching, of pacing and leading conversations that can help us to take that advanced level of rapport, which is then about influencing, persuading and engaging others to get the outcomes that you and others are seeking, right? So that we can get those more of the time, and our business improves at the same time, so we get a whole lot more besides. And as attendees to this Leaders Live, we are going to offer this at an exclusive half price of £60 all in. I think that's incredible, no-brainer value, and that'll be for the first 10 sign-ups. After that, the full price is 120, right? So for the first 10 sign-ups, you'll get 50% discount. How good is that? And we think that's pretty good value, folks. So please register your interest either right now, here in the comments, or contact me later via the link once I put it into the link and once you've watched this replay. And we'll also put the event in the description at the end of this Leaders Live thing, and then the webinar date will be confirmed later, and as mentioned, it will be in September after the holiday period. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're heading. And by the way, in the meantime, if you want to know more about high performance teamwork or NLP and the benefits that can bring you and your business, please contact Roger or myself. We'll be happy to help you. And Roger and I are going to do a lot more work together, hopefully this year. That's our intention. That's what we've been intending.
Well, I think our intention is to bring some of this into that high performance area so that we can really build some good teams.
Yeah, and so you'll have all the links, as I've said, in the text shortly to make it really easy for you. And just to finish off, so thank you very much, Roger. It's been brilliant to have you.
Been a pleasure. Andrew, I really enjoy our conversations. It's always fun, and it always takes me places where I hadn't expected to go. So that's really great.
Yeah. So just before we all go, look, quick word about Leaders Live. Before I talk about what's happening next week, I set up Leaders Live with the purpose to explore high performance topics and interview people just like Roger with mindset and passion that can help architect leaders and business to succeed in these rapidly changing times that we're living through. And you've got to be living under a rock if you haven't noticed that the world is changing and changing fast. And I do this all because, I believe that it's important that this generation of business leaders really get success through the people factor. So, Leaders Live really taps into our innate superpower of RE to the power of we. And that helps us to change all that. So next week, we've got David Agnew with us. David Agnew is the CEO of We Are Ghost, and he's on Leaders Live Breakfast Show next Tuesday, and we're talking about the importance of business branding. He's an expert on business branding, so look out for that. That's all, folks. So it's a goodbye from me, and it's a good day from Roger, and we'll see you next week, folks. Cheers for now, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.